There's a room in my childhood home that shouldn't exist. It was never on the blueprints. I know that because I checked over and over when I was a teenager, convinced that someone was hiding something from me. It had no door, no light, no reason to be there. Just a sealed-off cavity in the middle of the house. A hollow space between the upstairs hallway and the back guest room. When I pressed my ear against the wall, I could hear it. Not silence, more like the sound of something holding its breath. My parents never mentioned it. They acted like it wasn't there. I tried asking once, and my father stared through me like I hadn't spoken at all. When they died, first Dad, then Mom, a few months later, I inherited the house. I hadn't been back in years. The place smelled like dust and mildew, like time trying to bury things that wouldn't stay buried. The walls were thinner than I remembered. The first night back, I dreamed about the room. Not the house, the room. I was inside it, sitting cross-legged on the floor in the dark. My hands were folded neatly in my lap, and I was smiling. I don't know why. I woke up with my palms pressed together and a mouthful of dust. The second night, I heard tapping from behind the wall. 5 soft knocks. A pause. 5 more. I tried to ignore it, told myself it was rats or the house settling. But when I leaned close, it stopped, like it knew I was listening. On the third day, I found the door. It wasn't there before, I'm sure of it. Right at the end of the hallway, where the light never quite reached. A plain black door. No handle, no hinges. Just smooth, perfect darkness, like it had been painted on reality. But the wall behind it was gone. I ran, not away, into it, into the dark. It was like something inside me had been waiting for that moment, like a yes echoing from somewhere deep. Inside, it was cold. Not temperature. Memory. Like the air remembered grief. The room wasn't empty. There was a chair, a table, and something else in the corner. Something tall. Covered in cloth. Breathing. I sat in the chair. My body moved like it was rehearsing something. My hands folded neatly in my lap again. The thing in the corner whispered. It didn't speak, not with words. It unspooled meanings, like strings pulled from behind my eyes. It told me about the house, how it had always had this room, how every home has one, hidden in the dark, waiting for someone to remember it. How it had been so hungry. I asked what it wanted. It didn't answer. It opened instead. The cloth peeled back on its own, and behind it, there was no shape, no face, just a hole in the world lined with something sharp, wet, watching. I couldn't move. I couldn't look away. The dark poured into me, thick and slow, like oil filling my lungs, and I understood then. It didn't want anything. It just was. It existed in that space, where the world didn't look, in the negative of every photograph, in the blink between thoughts, and it grew every time someone denied it, every time someone turned away and said, "There's nothing there." When I woke up, the door was gone again, but the wall was breathing, not out, in, like it was waiting to inhale me. I boarded it up. Hammered nails through the studs, plastered over it, painted. But the nails fell out every night, quietly, respectfully. The wall heals itself. Sometimes I wake up with dust in my mouth. Sometimes my clothes are folded at the foot of the bed and I'm naked, covered in soot and fingerprints that don't match mine. And every morning, the wall is closer. I moved my bed downstairs. That helped for a while. But then, I started hearing the tapping on the floorboards. 5 soft knocks. A pause. 5 more. Last week, I saw someone standing in the garden at night, wearing my face smiling. Not at me at the house. Today, the black door came back. In the basement this time, right behind the furnace. It doesn't need me to open it anymore. It just needs me to understand. And I do. Because the room was never part of the house. The house was part of it. A skin around the wound. And I'm not afraid anymore. Not because it isn't real, but because it is. Because it's always been real, and always been watching, and now it knows I see it. Tonight I'll sit in the chair again. This time I'll remember the words. The ones it sang into my bones. The ones that make the door stay open. The ones that let it wear a voice. Maybe yours. I didn't realize how quiet it had become until I noticed the second hand on my watch had stopped. Not broken, just still, frozen between ticks. I tapped the glass, wound it, shook my wrist. No change, just that motionless, perfect pause. Then I looked around my apartment and noticed all the clocks were stuck. Oven, wall, laptop. Outside, the city had gone silent. No distant horns, no sirens, not even wind between the buildings. The sky, seen through my 9th floor window, looked painted in place, a smear of pale clouds that didn't drift. A plane in the distance was suspended mid-flight, just hanging like a dead fly glued to glass. It felt like I'd been left behind. I stepped into the hallway, and that's when I noticed the hum. Not a sound, but a pressure. The kind of hum you feel in your chest, like standing too close to a transformer or beneath a massive engine. Only it wasn't coming from the walls. It was behind them, a low, deliberate presence. All the doors on my floor were wide open. That was wrong. This was the kind of building where people double-lock their doors to keep strangers out. But now the halls were lined with silent, empty apartments. Empty isn't even the word. They weren't just unfurnished, they were wrong. The angles of the rooms were off. Shadows stretched in directions that made no sense. One of them had a floor that curved slightly upward like a bowl. At the end of the corridor stood a full-length mirror I didn't recognize. Silver-framed, pristine. When I looked into it, I saw someone standing behind me. I turned, but there was nothing. But when I looked back, the figure was still there. It was me, wearing my clothes. But its eyes were hollowed out, wide and dark, like old stone wells. And its arms just hung there, like they'd never been used, like they didn't know what hands were for. It didn't mimic me. When I stepped back, it stepped forward. When I raised my hand, it didn't move, just stared. Then it lifted one arm, slow and stiff, and pointed behind me toward a new door in the wall. No number, just a heavy handle and a keyhole shaped like a teardrop. I don't remember walking toward it, only that my hand was already on the handle before I realized what I was doing. The door opened silently. Inside was a stairwell spiraling downward. I stepped in, not because I meant to. My body simply moved, like it had already decided, like the choice had been made long before I reached the door. Down I went, step by step into a place that shouldn't exist. The stairs twisted unnaturally, wider at the bottom than the top. The air grew damp, then thick. My ears popped like I was sinking beneath the sea. Mold bloomed on the walls in spirals and fingerprints. I passed old shoes, burned photographs, an infant's cot. Personal items arranged carefully on every other step, like breadcrumbs left by someone trying to mark their descent into madness. At the base, the stairwell opened into a vast chamber that swallowed all light. It wasn't just a room, it was endless, folding into itself like a wound in reality. The floor beneath me was cracked stone, fractured by invisible forces, shifting ever so slightly under my weight. It felt alive, like it was breathing beneath my feet. Ahead, a faint glow hovered. Not a light, but a warmth, pulling me forward. As I approached, the glow took shape. A pile of broken clocks, their hands spinning backwards, forwards, stopping then starting again in impossible patterns. Around them, shadows stretched like fingers, reaching, grasping at the edges of the light. I realized these were fragments of time, moments lost, forgotten, trapped, and then I heard it. Whispers. Not from the shadows, but from inside my own mind. Voices I didn't remember learning, memories I never lived. A single phrase repeated itself over and over. You are the fracture. I fell to my knees. The walls around me rippled, bending time and space. I felt myself unraveling, threads of my existence loosening. In that endless darkness, I understood the truth. I wasn't just trapped. I was the cause. This place wasn't a prison. It was a wound I had torn in the fabric of reality. And the longer I stayed, the wider the fracture grew. I tried to scream, but the sound dissolved into silence. Now I wait, waiting for the fracture to consume me, or for someone else to stumble through and become the next wound in the endless dark. Because nothing here is real, except the breaking. They told me I was the last archivist. I never knew if they meant last to serve or last to survive. The vault is deeper than any building should go. 29 levels under the sand, carved into stone older than calendars. It was sealed for over 1,000 years, until the shifting dunes uncovered the entrance again, a stone door etched with symbols no one could decipher. No one but me. I never wanted to be here. My predecessor left no notes, just a single key and a warning. If the lights go out, don't move. I didn't understand what it meant. The upper floors are mundane, dusty stacks of forgotten texts, crates full of cracked ceramics, and scrolls too fragile to unroll. I cataloged everything dutifully for months, alone, speaking only into the recorder provided for field notes. It wasn't until I found the hatch beneath Section 12C that things began to shift. It wasn't on any schematic. Hidden under a false crate bottom, a perfectly circular hatch made of obsidian, warm to the touch. I should have reported it. Instead, I opened it. The air that rose from below was wrong. It smelled like something ancient, trying to remember how lungs worked. A long staircase descended into the dark. I went down with my torch 10 steps at a time. The signal cut out after the 6th turn. By the 8th, the stone began to change, no longer carved, but grown the way a shell grows around a wound. At the bottom, the room waited. Not a vault, not a chamber. A space that didn't fit the shape of the world. The floor sloped in every direction, gravity twisted, uncertain of itself. In the center, a black pool shimmered. Still, but reflecting no light. I approached, and the whispering began. Not voices, concepts. Thoughts not my own, injected behind the eyes. Words, older than mouths. It showed me images. Cities turned to dust. People forgotten by time. Languages unspoken for 10,000 years. All of it burned away by something beneath. Something waiting for memory to weaken. The pool was a lock. I was the key. When I stepped back into the library, days had passed. My water was gone. My voice was hoarse. But the recorder was still on. And I had been speaking the whole time in a voice that wasn't mine, in a language I didn't recognize. I should have run, but I didn't, because I wanted to know what I'd said. The days since then have blurred. I don't sleep much anymore. The vault hums now. Not an audible sound, something inside my skull. A pressure, a call. I've stopped sending reports. Not because I don't want to, but because the recorder no longer works. Every tape is filled with low tones and static, sometimes interrupted by soft breathing, rhythmic and close. There are new books on the shelves. I didn't bring them here. The paper is slick and damp. The ink moves slightly when you glance away. One was open this morning, a page marked in red, with a sketch of a man kneeling before a pool, his face dissolving into black threads. I've seen him in my dreams. I think he's seen me, too. 2 nights ago, I woke up at my desk, bleeding from the nose. My hands were covered in ink I don't remember touching. There were words scrawled across the walls in that same ink, looping and layered over each other until they looked like a web of thoughts trying to climb out of my mind. One phrase repeated clearly. The seal is thinning. I've started hearing footsteps above me, but there's no one there. Just sand and sky. I checked the hatch yesterday. It's open again. The pool is no longer still. I've come to accept something. This was never an archive. It's not about preservation. It's containment. The vault wasn't meant to protect history, it was meant to bury it. To trap the things memory should not carry. And someone forgot that. Or worse, someone remembered. The pool is waiting again. I feel it. A slow, deliberate hunger. And I know now why there was no record of the last archivist. They never left. I keep the lights on, though they flicker more with each hour. And I've stopped writing in the books that appear. They write back. I don't think I'll be here much longer, not because I'm leaving, because I think it wants me to become something else. A vessel, a message, a warning that won't look like one. If this is found, if anyone ever digs this deep again, don't open the hatch. Seal the vault. Bury me with it. Before I start speaking in that voice again. Before I forget which one was mine.